Hello, my name is Pat and welcome to my channel Close to the Edge, where we talk about all things prog rock, classic rock, heavy rock and maybe even a stick of rock. Stick around, you never know. Today I'm going to do my top 10 favourite bands stroke artists, and these are just my opinion, and if some of your bands are not in it, don't be giving out to me in the comments. Would appreciate that, because you have your favourites. I've left out an awful lot of bands that are other favourites of mine. I love them, but I can only do 20. I was going to do 10, but I said 10 is too small, and this was requested by some of my subscribers and viewers that I would do a top 10 favourite band, but I'm going to do a top 20. There was too many of them and I could have gone further ahead, but anyway, I'm going with the top 20. Anyway, my first band is an Irish band called the Horslips, and this is their second studio album, The Tawn. I just want to show physical media while I'm doing this. And brilliant band, formed in 1970. First album was 72. It was called Happy to Meet, Sorry to Part. I have my notes written down there. And brilliant band. I saw them in 1980 here where I live, here in Waterford City in Ireland, and they broke up not so long after that. The last studio album was The Man Who Built America, but a brilliant musicians, Celtic rock, prog rock, that kind of stuff, but a brilliant band nonetheless. That's my number 20, the Horslips. My number 19 is American band. I think they were from Queens in New York, Blue Oyster Cult. Now, I love Blue Oyster Cult. From their very first album in 72. They were formed in 1967, and one of their earlier names, they had a few of them, was Soft White Underbellies. And brilliant. The debut album is absolutely superb, and they made a string of brilliant albums up until, I suppose, Fire of Unknown Origin, which is their last brilliant album, and that's the region I would be looking at. But they're absolutely a stellar band. Love them to bits. But that's my number 19, Blue Oyster Cult. My number 18 is another American band. I think they were from Pasadena, California. I think they were formed in 1973. Van Halen. Absolutely incredible band. I remember reading that in 1978 they toured with Black Sabbath on the Never Say Die tour, and they blew Black Sabbath off the stage. They were that good. Like Eddie Van Halen, and may he rest in peace now, he died there a couple of years back. And what a guitarist, unique sound, absolutely unbelievable. I only like Van Halen with David Lee Roth, these 6 albums in this little box set, up as far as 1984. I don't like him with Sammy Hagar. I know a lot of people do, but I don't. And absolutely incredible band. That's Van Halen, number 18. My number 17 is a German band formed, I think they were formed, I have it written down here, 69, and their first album would have been 71, self-titled. This is an album called Ocean, and I think from about Floating in 74 up as far as Metromania in 85, that's the period that I would concentrate on. Eli, all absolutely brilliant albums. They changed their music a little bit. They were kind of space rock, prog rock, heavily influenced by British bands like Floyd, the progressive bands, Yes and all those. But they had their own unique sound, and his voice is brilliant. A lot of people don't like his singing, but it's a acquired taste, to be honest with you, but I love it, because he's a German singing English lyrics, and you can hear that German accent coming out. Absolutely amazing. Now, if you haven't heard these, Eli, go please check them out. That's Eli, number 17. My number 16 is the amazing British band Pink Floyd. I think they were formed in 1965. This is Animals, I think it's the remix version album that came out. And what a stellar band too. And their first album was Piper to Gates of Dawn with Syd Barrett in 1967. And of course he had a few issues with drugs and what have you. And Gilmour came in 68 on A Saucer Full of Secrets. But I think their greatest period is from Medal 71 up to the Final Cut in 83, and that to me is just album after album after album. And of course Roger Waters was the driving force behind this band, particularly the latter albums, like from Animals onwards, and he was the driving force. but all the time, brilliant musicians. Gilmour, one of the most amazing guitarists ever, brilliant. But I didn't really like the Gilmour Pink Floyd with A Momentary Lapse of Reason or the Division Bell. They're okay. Not bad now, but that's Pink Floyd. Number 16. Number 15 is the brilliant Mike Oldfield, whose debut album Tubular Bells in 1973 started Divergent Empire with Richard Branson, and this is the live album Exposed. And I think Mike Oldfield is brilliant all the way up to Tubular Bells 3. Absolutely superb. But this Mike Oldfield was just multi-instrumentalist, could play anything. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that's Mike Oldfield, number 15. Number 14, I'm just going to get a cup of coffee here. Number 14 is the amazing American prog band, the best prog band to come out of America, Kansas. I did a review of this album there a few days ago, and if you want to check that out, go and check it out. But Kansas are brilliant, especially the first 5 albums. And they were formed, they were formed around 73, first album 74, self-titled. And musician-wise, brilliant. I love Kansas. It took me years to get into Kansas because I kind of dismissed them in many respects, thinking that they were an AOR band, but they're not. They're a progressive rock band. And a lot of people over here dismiss them, over this part of the world, Europe. But no, you should never dismiss Kansas. Absolutely, I'm still going, I believe. Absolutely brilliant. That's Kansas, number 14. Now, number 13 might surprise a lot of people because it's probably in their top 10 or top 5 or top 3 even. Might be even their number 1. It's the amazing English band Led Zeppelin. And the album I'm showing here is Led Zeppelin 4. Now, Led Zeppelin were an amazing band, formed in 67, I think, or 68, I'm not 100% sure. 68. And I think they recorded their first album in 68 and brought it out in 69. And, you know, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, John Bonham, Robert Plant. Same lineup all the way through. Very rare for that to happen with a lot of bands. And, of course, they disbanded in 1980 after John Bonham died. But I don't think, these are one of the few bands that doesn't really have a bad album. All their albums are brilliant. The last album, Intro to the Outdoor, maybe a little bit not as good because I think Jimmy Page had kind of cashed out by then. But still an amazing band. I know a lot of people have this higher. Brilliant, very innovative band. Very innovative. And one of the biggest bands of all time. Anyway, that's Led Zeppelin, number 13. Number 12 is my favourite heavy metal band, probably. Yeah, they are my favourite heavy metal band. It's Black Sabbath. This is the album, it's their third album, Masters of Reality. Absolutely one of the inventors of the genre heavy metal. One of them, I'm not saying they are the one. But they were formed, I think they were called Earth when they were formed. And they were formed in about 68. First album 70, the 2 albums 70, Black Sabbath and Paranoid. And I love the Ozzy Osbourne era up to Never Say Die. I love Never Say Die. And the 2 Ronnie James Dio albums then came after that. After that then they had a few, they had Ian Gillan, they had Tony Martin. Dio came back as well. I like the Tony Martin albums, I think they're excellent. But the creme de la creme is from 1970 up to Mob Rules. And anyway, that's Black Sabbath. My number 11, another English band. They were formed in 1969 in Torquay. Wishbone Ash. This is their album with Laurie Weisfield's first album, There's the Rub. And these are absolutely brilliant band, absolutely excellent musicians, very underrated musicians, I have to say. I love Wishbone Ash, and I saw them twice here in Waterford. And I spoke with Martin Turner and Andy Pound. They're so nice. So nice. You know, a lot of artists are a bit up their asses, so to speak, a lot of them. No, not Andy. Sit down and talk to you. We had a pint. Absolutely brilliant. And I think from 1970, their debut album, up as far as Just Testing in 1980, that's the period to concentrate on. Yeah, they had 1 or 2 good albums after that, and they're still going, still touring. But I kind of not really interested in the newer stuff, even though a lot of people like it. But that's anyway, that's Wishbone Ash, number 11. Now, before I get into my top 10, if you like this video and you want to see more videos, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and like. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe if you do like it. Of course, if you don't like it, you're not going to subscribe, are you? In fairness. But if you could do that for me, I would be very much appreciated. Anyway, now on to the top 10. At number 10 is the German band. I think they were formed in 67. Yeah, Tangerine Dream by Edgar Froese. And this is a live album called Ricochet, an absolutely classic live album by them. Very hard to tell the difference between a live album and a studio album with Tangerine Dream, because usually the live stuff, no one has ever heard it before. An absolutely classic band. I love everything from, now I have the earlier stuff as well, I have it on a box set, because the first album was the Electronic Meditation. And they're hard to get into. I know Zeit, however you pronounce it, is Stephen Wilson's favourite album. But for me, it's from Phaedra, the Virgin Years, up as far as Hyperborea. That's what I love. I love them. You can sit back and relax and listen to these, and they take you on a journey. I always think they take you on a journey. I think they take you on a journey more so than any other band, because it's electronic, ambient, absolutely unbelievable. That's Tangerine Dream, my number 10. My number 9 is the Canadian prog metal, prog rock, whatever genre you want to call them, is Rush. Now I know a lot of people in the comments recently said, how am I wearing a Rush t-shirt, and they're this, that, the other, and they're pompous. They're pompous because they were brilliant musicians, and I saw them 3 times. Absolutely brilliant. And I like Rush from, say, Fly By Night up to about Signals. After that, I have the albums, I have all their albums. They kind of came back with the Snakes and Arrows album, and then they finished on Clockwork Angels in 2012, and haven't released an album since then, because unfortunately Neil Peart, however you call it, passed away about 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe 7 years. I think it was 2016, 17. I'm not sure. But may he rest in peace. What a stellar drummer as well. But this is the album Farewell to the Kings. But this was their kind of prog era, like this and Hemispheres. Absolutely unbelievable. Of course, everyone maintains that Moving Pictures is their best album, and I wouldn't disagree with that either, to be quite honest with you. But anyway, that's Rush at number 9. Brilliant. Number 8 is another English band, Genesis. I think they were formed in 1967 in Surrey in England, and I think they were in the Charterhouse kind of boarding school or whatever it was back then. And this is The Lamb, obviously, one of their greatest albums. And the first album, Revelation, I think Revelations or something was the name, but was it From Genesis to Revelation? That's correct. And you know, it wasn't really what they were into, and then of course Trespass. But until they got in Hackett and Collins, that's when they motored. An amazing progressive rock band, absolutely amazing. I think this is the creme de la creme, the double studio album, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. They kind of shifted when Hackett left after Wuthering Heights. They kind of shifted down, and they had the album Then They Were Three and Duke. They're not bad albums, but to me in the 80s they completely lost me. But still, in the 70s they were an amazing progressive rock band. That's Genesis. Now we're getting there now. Number 7 is Gentle Giant, and this is their live album, which kind of has the best of all their earlier stuff. Formed in around 1969, maybe early 70s, and then their first album, Gentle Giant, self-titled album. Like, they had album after album that was just all 10 out of 10. Their first, Acquiring the Taste, Octopus, and so on. Unbelievable music. A lot of people can't get into these at all. It took me a while to get into them, I have to be honest, because they are a hard listen. But if you actually give them time, sit down and listen to the complexity of the music, because the musicianship is just, it's out of this world actually. Even on this live album, it's just incredible. They kind of changed their thing when they got the end with Interview, which is still brilliant, and then The Missing Piece they were changing. And then of course the last two albums, especially the second last one, A Giant for Days, absolute rubbish. It's utter rubbish, to be honest with you. But up to The Missing Piece, amazing. Haven't heard him, go and check him out and give him time. Don't dismiss him on the first or second listen. You have to give them time. That's Gentle Giant. Number 7. My number 6 is Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Formed in late '69, and their first album was 1970, self-titled, and this is the album Brain Salad Surgery, which is a masterpiece. And these are always considered pompous and all this time, you know, grandiose, but they were absolutely amazing. I think up to about Works Volume 1, they were stellar. Maybe Works Volume 1 was going down a little bit. Of course, after that they had that Works Volume 2, which was a kind of a compilation of bits and bobs, and they had that Love Beach thing. Desperate album, absolutely desperate. Then they came back, they had an Emerson, Lake and Powell thing, because Palmer couldn't do because he was in Asia in the mid 80s, which I think is an excellent album. But then they came back with Black Moon and the awful album In the Hot Seat. Their last, I think it was 1990, what year is I have it written down there? 94. My God, horrible album. But anyway, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, amazing in the 70s. Actually, unbelievable life. Just incredible. I would have loved to see him. Incredible. Now, into the top 5. Number 5 is King Crimson. And to me, this is the best debut album of all time. It is. Greatest debut album of all time. Brilliant cover. And released in 1969. I think they formed in about 67. You know, Greg Lake, of course, who was just talking about, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer was on this. Robert Fripp, Michael Giles. It's just, what a band. And they went on then. They don't really have a bad album. It's one of the very few bands you could say, well, that's rubbish. None, they haven't. Now, the one album I find very difficult in is Lizard, which is, you know, hard to get into, but still it's not a bad album. And then you can keep going, you know, with the Red album, Starless. And then into the 80s, they had Discipline, which is absolutely amazing. Then, of course, you have Track. And their last album then, I think it was 2001, The Power to Believe. Just amazing. Don't have a bad album. That's my number 5, King Crimson. Amazing. My number 4 is Yes. And this is their third album, called the Yes album. The first album was Steve Howe. This is the Stephen Wilson remix. They were formed in 60, when did I have it written down here? 68. First album 69, which is okay. Then Time in a Word, and then this came along. This was the change. Steve Howe was the game changer in this band when he came along. And of course Wakeman then came along on Fragile. And they produced a string of albums then in the 70s that were all 10 out of 10. And they changed in the 80s to more poppy, rocky stuff. Still good, but the 70s, Yes. That's why I love them. I love 70s, Yes. I can just sit back and be in awe of how good they were. Musicians. They were just so bloody well good. That's my number 4. My number 3 is Jethro Tull. They're probably my favourite prog band. I know it can change with Yes and everything. It can always change, but probably, I'll say. They were formed in 67, I think. I have it written down as well. Yeah, formed in 67. And first album, this was 68, which was kind of bluesy, you know, Mick Abrahams. And then they got Martin Barr in on Stand Up. And it's still bluesy, but you can hear the progressive elements starting to creep in. And then Benefit, Aqualung. Of course, Thick as a Brick, then my favourite prog album of all time, which blew everything out of the water as far as I'm concerned. It was just amazing. And this is another class, Songs from the Woods. I like Tull all the way up to Broadsword and the Beast. I think they have every album brilliant. But I think when they lost their way with that Under Wraps album, and that lost me completely. I have the albums, and I know he's still going now with Zealot Jean and that Rock Flute thing. Not interested. Not interested. And definitely not interested if Martin Barr is not on their albums. Barr, the first one, obviously. But anyway, that's Jethro Tull, my number 3. My number 2, as I call him, the genius, and I'm wearing the shirt, Frank Zappa. And I'm including the Mothers in this now as well, because I class with Zappa and the Mothers and Zappa on his own, all in one. This is the album Apostrophe, I think released in 74. Actually, if you haven't heard Zappa, this is the one to get into first. This is more accessible Zappa. But this man, I don't think in studio has had a bad album either, and he had so bloody well many of them. And so many live albums, and every live album was different. They were formed in 65, I think. The Mothers were, and then the first album, Freak Out, in 66, which was a double studio album, which was kind of unheard of at the time. And he went on and on with brilliant avant-garde, jazz rock, fusion, progressive rock, you name it. I always think that Frank Zappa has his own genre, and it's Frank Zappa. Simple as that, and just a genius. Brilliant guitar, and the musicians he used to have on his albums were second to none. There were no one better than any of the musicians he had, and that's a fact. And one of his last studios, I think, album, I think would have been The Yellow Shark. And of course he passed away from prostate cancer in 1993, which was misdiagnosed. They thought it was a urinary tract infection, which is unfortunate. Imagine if he had to be around for another 20 or 30 years. Imagine what he would have done. Nobody knows, because he was that good. The genius, Frank Zappa. But my number one band, and always has been my number one, I can't deviate from them. I try sometimes to say that Zappa might be my number one, Tull, yes, but no, I can't. My number one, my favourite band, and until the day I die they will be my favourite band, is the amazing Deep Purple. I just adore Deep Purple, from In Rock to Come Taste the Band. That's my Deep Purple. Formed in around 67, I think. Around 67, first album, Shades of Deep Purple, 1968. I don't really like them first three albums. Be straight up with you, I don't really like them. One or two good tracks. But then, In Rock, Fireball, Machine Head, Who Do We Think We Are, Burn, Stormbringer, and Come Taste the Band. Different lineups, but obviously the Mark II lineup is the lineup. Those four studio albums and the live album made in Japan, just incredible. And the reason why these are my favourite really is because, I'll put that down, we heard the tape, I know I've said this before, we heard the tape in 78 of my friend Kevin, and we heard Fireball and In Rock, and that was the start of it. That was the first serious type of music, as I call it. Legends. Now I know they're still going. They had Equals One there last year. It's not bad, and the Steve Morse era, Some Perpendicular, is not bad. Of course they had that horrible album with Joe Lynn Turner, I think it was 1989 or 1990, was it? Slaves and Masters. Oh my god, what a horrible album. And they've made one or two iffy albums as well, even after John Lord left. I think Bananas is another one. So I'm not really into that Purple. It's my 70s Purple is what I'm into, and I absolutely adore them. They'll always be my favourite band. Might not necessarily be the best band, but they're my favourite band. But anyway, that's my number one, Deep Purple. What is your top 10 or top 20 or top 5 even, or even just the number one? Very interesting to read it in the comments. Extremely interesting to read in the comments, I said there. Comments. And if you do like this, like it and hit that subscribe button and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully I'll see you very, very soon here on Close to the Edge. And be nice to each other. It's nice to be nice. And stay safe. And until my next video, bye bye for now. Okay, bye bye.